there's not a perfect equation for that, because there's the variable of the creative, the consumer, the market, everything is in play. But the more we can be focused on that end consumer, on the community, on where can you provide value first, then the conversation just starts in such a different place. Like, what value are you committed to delivering to your audience?
Sean, thank you for coming on today. I'm pumped to talk to you today.
Likewise.
You and I we've worked together for man, it was like almost 3 years ago, I think, back when we were doing marketing and everything for Keep Nature Wild. And for the listeners out there, Sean is someone who I really admire. He's built a brand. It was Keep Nature Wild, which they focused on outdoor goods, and we'll get into that a little bit. And what's cool about them is they have like a mission to, with every purchase, they would pick up a pound of trash in the wilderness, and it was awesome. And so like creating marketing and branding around that for them was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun working with them. Yeah, and dude. So Sean tonight he's come on to kind of help tell a story a little bit, and then kind of catch us up to what he's doing now with building brands and kind of going into, that aspect of what is all about a business. So Sean, thanks for coming on. I don't know if you want to take a second to introduce yourself or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, excited to be here and just, chop it up, admire, your path and what you're up to. And it's always good to connect and cross paths. And so, being able to jump on here and chop it up, like, about brand and about, building and going all in and doing the things necessary to build something successful. Like, I mean, I could talk about that all day long. I do talk about that all day long. So to do it with you is a pleasure. So excited for this opportunity. I'm here in AZ, and we'll get into all the good stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about that specifically, like, building brands, what goes into it, because I think a lot of people think about building a brand as some thing that's like really glamorized, right? But they don't see the work that goes in behind the scenes, and it's a lot more than people think. And where did that passion come from for you? Like, where did you start discovering that you had this desire to help build things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, always have had that entrepreneurial itch, from mowing lawns to selling citrus from, the orange trees that we had on my family's property, to just various levels of, trying different things, always wanting to create, just being fascinated by the idea that, like, oh, I can put 12 oranges in a plastic bag and put it on a table, and these, snowbirds rolling through Arizona, I'll buy it. Like, sick. Like,
was that the first business you started? Oranges?
Probably, like, that or mowing lawns, but that one was probably the most successful. We had a house right on the corner of a major like road that also kind of heads out of town, and so you get a lot of people passing by, and we were the corner house, and we put out, I'd pick oranges every day. Basically, we'd fill a bunch of bags of oranges or grapefruit or whatever, and just put a bag with literally a little mailbox thing where people could slide $5 per bag. And I think we paid for family trip that summer. I think we did it 2 or 3 years, but that's probably the most successful first like real thing that was consistent.
Yeah, I mean, everyone starts somewhere, right? Like, it's kind of funny. So I, growing up, living in Arizona, same place. Yeah. Scorpions are a huge problem. So me and my friends were like, hey, let's just put up signs around the neighborhood. And we decided just to, like, at nighttime, people would pay us to go into their backyard, and we'd blow torch scorpions. And it was like,
I was just doing that 3 nights ago. So
it's a good time. Yeah,
I
we
know
gotta
that
keep those
grind.
guys. Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously,
I'd
dog.
hire you, dude.
I appreciate that. Hey,
Yeah.
job security.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So like, I mean, it sounds like the desert has had a big
Yeah. I mean,
play on you.
something about, yeah, Arizona, coming from a family, like all growing up, my mom was selling pies at, different, boutique pop up, like, what do they call those? Like,
Yeah, like farmers market kind of things.
kind of, but more
Yeah.
like around, the like vintage, I don't know, furniture and shopping and that sort of thing. And then, they, would do catering and various things. And then, when I was a senior in high school, my parents bought, a bakery in downtown Mesa called Sweet Cakes. And like from day one, a buddy of mine and I would get out of school at noon. We had like half day schedule, go straight to Sweet Cakes, work the crazy lunch rush, and so I think that, they, both my parents, always, very, entrepreneurial, and, also very supportive and trying different things. And so, something about Arizona, I'm fifth generation Mesa,
Oh, nice.
been, here forever. And so, yeah, there's something about, the desert that just gets me pumped, except for when it's 110 or whatever it is today.
Yeah, it's intense.
Wedding. Yeah.
When you go outside and like you instantly just start melting. It's the best.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's cool. I mean, yeah, like I always I've been like doing a lot of like self-reflection and just like listening to other podcasts, and it seems like a common theme that people take is, their origin story, if you want to call it that, or like them growing up and all the experiences they have growing up. It kind of leads them into a direction where they're at right now.
Yeah.
And that said, did you ever have a time when you're like, you know what? I love the desert. I love the outdoors. I'm going to try and create a company around that. Is that kind of where Keeping Nature Wild came from, or I'm sure some?
Yeah. So I'll give you kind of the full picture there. So in 2014, I got married, and we were living in Provo. I'd been in, Utah for about 5 years at that point. And, my wife's from Arizona. We, a year after we got married, we were kind of looking at different options. Had a startup that had, failed, had died, and, was working at a software shop running marketing, and then there were some changes there, and so I got let go. And it was like, all right, what are we doing? What's the plan? And actually the plan was move back to AZ, build up some cash reserves, and then travel back and forth to LA. I had some friends, that have YouTube channels or different things, and to go, into like more content production, video, film. And, so while in AZ, I started, doing weddings and videography, photography, had a few clients where I was doing, video content. And in the meantime, my sister and brother-in-law actually, for about a year and a half or 2 years, had been really my brother-in-law building this, blog called Arizona Hiker's Guide. And originally it was a blog, then it turned into an Instagram feed where it was just featuring hikes in Arizona. He would write about hikes, and did it in a way, for at the time, was very novel. There was, a couple of hiking sites at the time, but they were super technical and felt like, Web 1.0, like Reddit, kind of, like threads, and very, technical, I guess is the best word. And he made it very different, very approachable. It'll take this many minutes to hike, or this many hours, or this many whatever, this many miles, and some photos that he had taken, and just made it much more like digestible and approachable. And it started to take off. And then, he created a logo. Then people started wanting that logo on shirts, and And so as I was doing production stuff, would go with them on hikes and help with photography and just, seeing the interest, seeing what was going on. And then we hosted a group hike actually on Black Friday or on on Black Friday for, I think it was REI's first year of like the opt outside campaign.
Oh, cool.
And we hosted a hike. For some reason, we chose to hike Flatiron, which is like literally the hardest hike in the valley.
Yeah, that's the one with like the cables you gotta like grab onto.
Basically,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's like the last push is like straight up, pretty much. So we're like, okay, we got some local like and national sponsors and like snacks and made these snack kits and like, cool, let's do this group hike. And literally like 250 people showed up on Black Friday to hike Flatiron.
Damn, that's awesome.
Oh shit, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Quickly pivoted, and Cam was like, well, that, technically you're not supposed to have groups of more than 15 on a trail. And just he started brainstorming about, well, what if, like, how could we expand this outside of Arizona? How could we do this for good? And floating the Salt River, just seeing trash everywhere, it was like, oh, someone needs to do something about this, and we've got this community. Why not us? And at the time there was, a handful of t-shirts with this Arizona outline logo that still is a bestseller to this day.
I still see it like driving behind cars all the time.
Yeah, it's still
all over the place.
A couple of days ago, once a week I'll see a car with our stickers on it. And so we started brainstorming. I still remember at the time I had this like whiteboard in my room, and something about a good whiteboard session that just gets me fired up. So we're in my room, in like a spare room in our house, and just whiteboarding out, okay, if we were to do this thing outside of Arizona Hiker's Guide, what could be the core like content pillars? Like, how would it be different, but how would it build on what's already been built? Would we just change the name of Arizona Hiker's Guide, or would we keep that and build a new thing? And just these conversations, and helping them. And really initially it was just like, I was just pumped to help out and contribute. And then it was maybe a week, two later, we sat down and it was just like, hey, what if I started focusing on this and put my, efforts, or actually we went to Phoenix Flea, which is like a local market. So at this time it was like, hey, I want to help build, let's order more product. Let's do this market, see how it goes. And then let's figure out, how to build this even more. And literally we had a line out of our booth for 4 or 5 hours straight.
That is crazy.
Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
So that
we knew you had something.
Yeah. We're like, man, there's something here. People want to like support Arizona, but they want kind of this outdoors thing. And I think it was that week after that, we sat down. It was like, dude, there's something here. We can see it. Like, what if I bring my photo and content skills and you bring your product and execution skills, and let's do this. Let's build this thing together. And basically kind of sketched out a rough like business partnership agreement that we actually never made attempts or planned to turn it official, but came up with a partnership agreement and then just started going full speed. And within 6 months, we were both he was a teacher at the time, teaching math. By that summer, that was November. So by the following summer, he was able to quit his job. I was able to basically taper down all client work, and we both went full time on building this thing within 6 months, which is crazy. And then it just like year after year, just explosive growth, organic. And we just kept leaning into this idea of community of Arizona, of the Southwest, of just this, trying to keep it as simple as possible, and as like focused on how can we bring value to individuals in our community, and how can we always focus on our customers and what would bring them value first before it was something that would bring value to us, or at least over, delivering value to our community. Because I mean, our community helped us build the brand. It was there, supported, it wanted this, and we just facilitated, making it a reality.
Yeah. And that's honestly, that's one thing that I think is one of the most important things is providing value first. I've noticed, at least with like some of the brands we used to do marketing for back when we had our agency, they would just, have an idea and expect sales because, they launched another cheap t-shirt line or something like that. And they weren't doing anything that was like specifically giving back or was any different than in their competitors. And one thing that you touched on that I think is huge is community. And on top of that, I did like go back and do a little bit of research on like Keep Nature Wild and some of the things that like you used to do and kind of what you're doing now. But philanthropy appears to be a pretty big aspect of brand building. Could you discuss like how giving back with Keep Nature Wild really impacted the business overall? Because that's where I saw, that's where I was impressed the most. Like you would host these events where, correct me if I'm wrong, but like thousands or hundreds of people would come out and they'd all just like pick up trash and walk around. And by the end of it, you'd have just tons of bags of just garbage that was found out on the trail. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, so to address the first part of your question of the role philanthropy plays in building a brand, I don't think by any means that every brand has to have a philanthropic give back. I think there's compelling reasons why that's important, but I think more importantly is doing something that authentically is valuable to the customers that you serve. So for our customer base, we realized very quickly, because of the group hikes, because of our first cleanup, 600 people showed up. We cleaned up almost 20,000 pounds of trash from the Salt River. It was like, what? At like, for some reason, we thought that doing them early. The first one we did at like 6 a.m. It was like a 3 or 4 hour thing. And it was raining that morning. And we were like, no one's coming. And then it just ended up being insane.
That's wild.
What we realized very early on is people are looking for community. They're looking for a sense of belonging. They're looking to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So philanthropy very much lends itself to that, right? To contribute. I contribute my little bit of energy, and the compounding effect of all of us contributing makes up a meaningful impact. I think brands can do that in other ways outside of philanthropy, whether it's entertainment or education or other forms of value, as long as it's authentic to what their customers actually want and need, and authentic to the brand's ability to deliver that. So what I mean by that is, there's plenty of brands that try to just follow the Tom's 1-for-1. Plenty of brands that have followed the give back or make an impact. Or now, I mean, we see more and more people organizing and doing cleanups, and we didn't start that movement by any means. There's 4Ocean, there's United by Blue, amazing brands doing amazing things, and we built on what they had built and made it our own. But a lot of just like, oh, okay, I'm a brand, I need to give back. This seems good.
Yeah.
And I think it has to come from a place of authenticity, or your customers, your audience, they're gonna sniff it out pretty quick. So the role that philanthropy plays in building a brand, I think it's philanthropy. But it's really, if you want to build a lasting brand that resonates with people, that people connect with on an emotional level, you have to find a way to provide value to that customer outside of your core product. A high level example of this is Apple. Apple doesn't have necessarily a direct give back. I mean, they do a lot of initiatives, they have all these things, but it's not like it's a core of their marketing messaging, or their brand messaging. What is the core of their brand messaging is the person you will become if you use an Apple product. And whether that's real or not, the value that their customer gets out of that sense of being, that sense of realizing their potential of, I am creative, therefore I use Apple products. I am this. Like it's a value of technology being secondary to really this lifestyle piece of, I can accomplish more by owning an Apple product. So, and then you look at high fashion brands, and status is the thing, the value, and they do it in a way that's curating. And so it doesn't have to be, status is, I'd say, as far away from philanthropy as you could get, potentially.
It's a little different,
right? But I don't think it's I don't think it's good or bad. I think it's just brands that execute on that end, that are luxury brands that really understand, my customer wants to feel special. They want to feel unique. They want to feel exclusive. How do we do that in an authentic, genuine way that the brand solves for and provides a space for, that then allows not just, we're going to sell expensive clothes, we're going to do the luxury thing. It's, where can we start to solve the secondary? Like, great brands are great because they solve the secondary and sometimes even tertiary desires that their customer is looking for.
Interesting.
Nike sells shoes, right? That's primary, right? That's the thing. You go to Nike to buy shoes, apparel, whatever. Secondary is, I want to be more athletic. I want to be an athlete. I want to experience, running and hiking and doing these things. And if I have these shoes, maybe I'll be a little more active. Tertiary is like, the sneaker drops and the exclusive and that curation of celebrities and cool people wearing the shoes and Jordan brand and the like even broader ecosystem that Nike has played in, like sneaker culture and these subcultures, right? Is where kind of that third level plays, is like in these different subcultures that exist. And so even with Keep Nature Wild, it's like we sold apparel, right? T-shirts, hats, stickers, with a mission that anyone could get involved with, whether they came and joined us at a cleanup or became a wild keeper and contributed on a monthly basis, or they just decided, hey, I'm going to go pick up, some trash because I see what you guys are doing and this is really cool and I want to do my part. That's the secondary. Then you get the third ring of people who, because of that, became friends and now started their own, composting conversations or different sustainability things. So it's like things that we don't even know that are happening because connections and relationships that were formed because our brand existed.
Yeah, that's huge. You said a lot of things that got me thinking there, but it sounds like just like creating a community around a product or a brand or something like that is kind of where that lifelong or long lasting brand starts. So if a brand is like, would you suggest, if like, let's say I wanted to start my own clothing line, would you say, okay, well, you're not going to stand out unless you figure out what else you're going to contribute to them. So either it's status, service, giving back in some other way. But would you say, like, because now you work with brands, you consult with brands, you do that kind of work. Is that typically like when they come to you, do they have that already figured out, or is that something that they're looking to start developing?
I think it's a mix of both. Some people really know, here's what I want to create and build towards. Some people are like, I have this great product, and it's like they're very focused on, why isn't this working, or how can I make this bigger?
Yeah.
When I think across the board, the first conversation we have with people, and then I think more people need to step back and think about, is like, who your target, depending on your target audience, what do they need? What is valuable to them in their life, in their circumstance, in their day-to-day, in the things that they do? Not, the typical demographic questions: what's their age, gender, hair color, vibe. Those are all elements that help tell the story. But I think more importantly, it's the mentality of what are they looking for. So when we recognized, and fortunately we realized it fairly early in the business, that Keep Nature Wild was in the business of helping people make friends, not in picking up trash, not in clothing people. It was that people would move to Arizona. They didn't have friends. They didn't have a community. They wanted to be a part of something, and they came to a cleanup and met a friend, and now they go hiking with that person, or they joined the Wild Keepers program and connected with people in their local area that now they go hiking together. They go out and pick up trash together, or whatever, developing that. And so we would make decisions of, okay, how do we continue to grow our impact? Well, how do we build an ambassador program that's different? And that's where we built this Wild Keepers program, which is people once a month go out in their area, they pick up trash, they contribute it, but they're part of a exclusive Slack channel and group, and they're able to facilitate and have conversations and share, experiences and knowledge, and connect with people in their local areas and all that. And so I think it's if you're starting a brand, if you're building a brand, it's taking a step back and thinking, what is the brand solving for that person, or what can it be solving that is like alongside or outside of the core product, but that accompanies or compounds the value, right? So if I'm selling a cup, it's what am I drinking in that cup? Why is that cup important to me? It keeps my drinks cold. It makes my ice last longer, all these things. So thinking of ways where you can create drink recipes, or you can think of ways that, like, now that cup has more reasons to be in my day-to-day because I have this additional resource, these additional tips, tricks, whatever it might be, that make me inseparable from this cup, right?
Yeah.
It's finding those little nuggets that you can bring value to in the use case of your product, that isn't necessarily, here's more product to fill. You keep one at work, keep one in the office, keep one. It's like, that's where a lot of people, I'm sure, would come to your agency. It's like, okay, we need to have people buy more cups.
Yeah.
How do we get them? Okay, maybe we release an office cup and a host cup and a car cup. Maybe. Or you can tell that story in a meaningful way that brings value, and then it's that natural decision for that customer then to buy more and have it in more places in their life, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly it. And maybe, I don't know, I don't know if you mind, but maybe I can put you on the spot for a second.
Always.
So my fiance and I, we want to start a nonprofit in honor of her dad. Back in 2020, he passed away of cancer. But when he initially got diagnosed,
sorry about
that. It's something new, but I think his legacy lives on in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
But when he first got diagnosed, he was all about, you know what, this is going to be difficult, but we're going to do it. And so he's always about challenging himself and doing hard things. And that was his big thing. It was I'm going to do hard things. And because of that, it's actually I don't know if you know the Murphys, Blake Murphy and Allie Murphy. But
sounds very familiar.
Yeah. So they initially they signed up for a half marathon. It was the first time that they ever ran, and he got super pumped. And he was like, "You know what? That's sweet. Like I'm gonna buy you guys new shoes. Like we're gonna do this thing. You guys are gonna kill it." And they ran their first race just with 3 people. So it was his 2 kids and then like a family friend. And so it started with 3. And after he passed away, they kept on doing it. And last January, this past one in 2023, there was 55 people that ran in his honor. And it was just 13,
super cool.
13.1. Yeah, it was awesome. I was lucky enough to be a part of it. And to that extent, like there's a community being built around this idea of doing hard things together, and in honor of someone, you know, who challenged them and they wanted to, make proud and leave that legacy. And so, my fiance and I, we came up with this idea, and of course our family is very involved in this, but it's like, we're going to create this thing called Team Tim. And, we're actually running in Arizona on, February, I think 10th, 2024, but we're doing the full
Phoenix
marathon. Yeah.
Or the Mesa Marathon.
Sick. Yep. It's gonna be rough.
Nice. Gonna run through my neighborhood basically.
Yeah. We'll be right there.
That's cool. Yeah.
But like to that point, we want to build this community where, you know, people who have been affected by cancer or other hard things, are like, you know, they want to support the idea. We want to build that because there's obviously something there. And also there's like a benefit of challenging yourself and proving that you can do hard things if you set out to accomplish them, especially together.
Totally.
And I ran it in January, and to your point, like making friends, like I made friends with people I'd never considered I would have considered I would have. And so like there's something there. To that 100%. Point, we haven't come up with like apparel or anything like that, but that's how we initially want to like get people signed up and get them excited, and, you know, wear the brand, tell the story, be a support for people who, you know, struggle with cancer or things like that, and then build that community. And from there, give back and donate to cancer research and all these other things. But with that said, I know this is kind of on the spot, but what advice would you give for like a brand like that?
Yeah. So, man, I mean, I think one, when you create from a place of, when you create from a personal space, I think a lot of people are like, oh, you know, don't get, you know, there's that, either that hesitation or that kind of like warning, like, oh, don't tie yourself up into the brand or make it about your identity or your, but I think like what better place to start than a place that is so authentic and real and is an experience that collectively, you know, you, your wife, her family have gone through, and that you can really empathize with other families, other people who've gone through hard things, who are currently going through hard things, who, you know, that inspiration of what their lives meant to you and what that challenge is creating in each of you to actually sign up and push yourself to do something that you very well could have done, you know, in your lifetime up until this point.
Yeah.
But you haven't, right? Or I'm making that assumption, I guess. But so where I like to start with that is like, one, okay, recognizing and understanding that value, and then solving for what do you and your fiance, specifically, if this is going to be you two running this thing, what are the things that you can do best within an organization like this, that you feel like you could? Are you good at organizing events? Are you good at facilitating conversation? Are you good at making content? Are you good at telling stories? Or, just make that audit between the two of you. Like, what are the things that we can really map toward our skill set? And then that will give you at least an area where it's like, okay, here's the passion, the authentic place we want to come from. Here's what we're committed to accomplishing. Here's what we want to do. And then here's the skills that we have. And then really setting a commitment together. So something I've been really like learning and understanding more and more of is like, when you commit to something, the chain of events that happens after you make a very clear and precise commitment and then start speaking that commitment to the world, the chain reaction of events that happens is insane versus a desire. Hey, we want to do this. If you even on this, the next version of this conversation you have with someone and say, my wife and I are committed to, building on the legacy of Tim.
Yeah.
Doing that through X, Y, and Z. So getting clear on what can we commit to accomplishing that's a lofty, like a purpose or a vision, but stated in a commitment. So
right.
Kind of an audit of the reason, the skill set, and then a commitment, and then really like thinking about and mapping out various like paths. So there's, the live strong path, right? So looking at what's worked before.
Yeah.
You've had, an athlete that was well known throughout the world. Obviously, things have changed since that movement, but in that time, it was like his accomplishments and accolades and everything made it this global movement. Where Tim is, that's a one-to-one, that's a relationship either with him or someone who knew him or knows the family. And so then it's looking at, okay, but there are, how many Tims are there in the world, and how many families are looking for this outlet that is something that luckily Tim's family found, right? That you guys, whoever made that suggestion, found that first marathon, signed up for it, took the action. So people will pay for things that solve problems or that are physical need. They need products, they need these things. Yeah. So solving the problem of, hey, we just went through this challenging thing, and here's something we can basically just like plug into, and that this organization can do the research on, hey, we'll find, how many family members, how many things, where if you can facilitate, we'll even bring sponsors to the table that will basically pay for your family to sign up for this run because they're supporting this thing. So thinking of it as, what pain are you solving for, and mapping various paths, right?
Yeah.
And then, so I think a lot of people think of the product first, like, okay, we're going to make apparel, and apparel is going to do this, and then eventually we can do the thing we actually want to do. Literally this week, we're just working with a client who, she's amazing, has built this athleisure brand, is working really hard, and literally every meeting we've had, she talks about events. Oh man, I would love to host and organize like, these events, marathons, fun runs, like things that challenge you to go above and beyond. And like, I can't wait till eventually my apparel brand is big enough to facilitate that. It's like, okay, let me just tell you what I've heard in the last, 4 hours that we've met between various meetings. All you talk about is events and how apparel is in the way of you actually doing what you want to do, which is create this environment where these events can happen. So it's like, maybe you're in the wrong business. And like, point. Why do you need apparel to get you to doing events when she's organized hundreds of events in her lifetime. She's done that through her church organization, through just family events. She's organized like 40th birthday parties for friends who've paid her to like coordinate all the pieces. It's like, that's what you love. That's what you're good at. So it's like, that's where mapping those skill sets and those things that you could really be passionate about executing on, really come into play. So I think it's like just get on a whiteboard or a piece of paper and just draw out these scenarios of like, what are you solving for? Are you solving for, that grieving period? Are you solving for just building this brand around Tim and his legacy? And then people can kind of build, and draw inspiration from his life. And you're just telling that story over and over in various ways. Or is it, hey, there's thousands and thousands of Tims out there that their stories are worth being told that no one has ever told them except for their family. So is it, hey, let's produce media around the lives of these, seemingly inconsequential people in the macro, but in the micro, literally, like, we're so inspiring to enough people that have gotten them to go run a marathon and be miserable for 4 to 12 hours.
Just suffer.
So that's how I like to look at things, is starting kind of with the end in mind of like, what do you actually want to be providing? What do you actually want to be facilitating for people? And then reverse engineer that to your skill set. And then it's like that roadmap of like, okay, we're committed to this. We know when we want to get to here. We know we have these skills today. This is what we can start executing on our end. We're going to go share our commitment with enough people to get them to buy in, because we need someone who can produce video. We need someone who can do this. We need someone who can, and then those pieces will come into place because that commitment's clear. That vision is clear. That like, here's what we're going to create for people. Then it's allowing the brand, the service, the product to evolve as it gets to that place.
Yeah. I
think
love
a
that
lot of
perspective.
people start with like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to create the product first. And the product's going to be X because everyone creates an apparel brand, or everyone, which we were a t-shirt company. Like, how many t-shirt companies are there? But it started first with, man, we want to like people to love and experience Arizona more, and we want community to form. And then that grew into something else. So it's like, when you can really align around that like core motivation that gets people emotionally bought in, then the product almost solves itself, or the thing that will make money and build a business will solve itself, rather than saying, oh, we're going to create a fund that supports people, this and that. It's like more organic in how to approach what you actually are trying to solve for. Because if you start too quickly on the product or the service, I think you can get lost in doing something, going down a path where you're like, I'm doing this thing. Even this client of ours, like you literally should have seen her demeanor before I asked that question of like, do you want to build an apparel brand, or do you want to build a brand, and why? Yeah. Like, and why are you doing product? And it was just like, the rest of the conversation was just her entire. She was talking about, how do I source, and where do I go next, and what trends, and this, and it's like, hey, what if you could just start putting on events? And she was like, oh my gosh, like I could do this, I could do this, I could do that. Yeah. And so I think it's if you start to, the flip side is, and I am guilty of this as well, where you're so caught up in the vision and the clouds of it, and okay, this is how it's going to be, and so it's not create that and then feel like you can just jump and bypass all the hard steps. Because at the end of the day, those hard steps, those things, you've got to put in the work. You've got to commit to the execution, the conversations, the phone calls, the meetings, the planning, the pivoting, the changing the direction because of this. And, but with that commitment and that clarity of, here's what we're we're actually trying to accomplish for people, at least puts you in a place where you're not just like a Me Too product or service that like isn't authentic to who you guys are, what you guys actually are trying to accomplish. It's just like, oh, well, these people do it. Maybe we could do something similar. And that's not to say that that's not a good path either, to look at what works, but to really make it your own and something you could, all build and get behind. I think the more you can put that strategy in place and be thoughtful about the actual problem you're trying to solve for people, is it, with your example, are you trying to solve for a place for people to put their money? That's one. That's a place for charity to exist and be, and there's plenty of charities and great charities that do that. Hey, we're here to facilitate your tax write-offs, and we do good, and we're awesome, and give us your money. It's great. Or are there other things? Are you there to help, in people's most challenging times, and facilitate that in a way where it's like, click one button, we'll do the rest, whatever that might look like, so it's just mapping towards what you feel like, and then being okay with that might not be the right end goal, but that like you have a direction to head.
Right. No, that's huge. And seriously, I appreciate, like, sincerely appreciate what you just said, because that gives me a lot of things to think about and like ponder on. So
yeah, and the last thing I'll add is do that as quickly as you can, but as thoughtfully, but then take 3, 5, 10 steps, because you'll learn more, you'll get more clarity on after those 10 steps than sitting around. As much as I love a good whiteboard session and ideating, it's that paired with, okay, what are the next 10 steps I can take, and then come back to the whiteboard with, because
100% comes down to execution. When you you boil it down, it's like, ideas are great, and for this podcast is actually a really good example. I had this idea, like, hey, I want to start this podcast. This was like a few years ago, and I was like, I'd love to do it. Like, it's great. Like, it's a super fun idea. Like, hey, I talk about these kind of things, but until you actually hit record and then you finally hit upload, like, nothing happens.
Totally.
But to that point too, I think, like, another thing that you said, which I thought was interesting, is like you build community around brands, right? And that's the end goal of Team Tim, is right to build a community of support and to help other people. But I feel like Keep Nature Wild had that too. Is like when I would go and buy a product, I would go tell my friends, like, hey, check out this shirt, and they'd be like, oh, that's a cool shirt, like, nice design. And I was like, wait, hold on a second though, like, they're picking up a pound of trash because I bought this shirt. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And then, like, you tell them, like, oh yeah, check out their social pages. They're doing pickups. I think it was monthly, right? And you guys would do monthly pickups, right?
Yeah. And now it's to the point where it's, multiple per month. We had 125 in the month of April to hit 1 million pounds.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
That's so cool. And like, to that point, like I just said, like, that's so cool. Like, I still want to go tell people about the brand, because you guys are doing cool things, and there's a reason behind it. And I love the outdoors. Like, I go backpacking all the time. Yeah. And it's definitely something that's, like, relevant to me. And I also think it's important to identify the reason why, and to your point, the end goal of whatever brand you want to build. So that way, when things get tough, you still understand, you know what, I committed to this, and here's the results I want. If I want these results and I want to make an impact, I have to stay in the game.
That's more than half the battle, just staying in the game.
Seriously, though. Totally. What were some of the more difficult times starting Keep Nature Wild, if you can like think of any top of mind, where you almost didn't stay in the game?
I mean, I think there's always, like, various stages of building. You hire someone that you think is going to be that unlock. you get a partnership that you think is gonna, like, so many micro things of like, oh, this is going to be that next stage, or this is going to be that thing, or this is going to be that tweak that we've been looking for. And sometimes it is, and sometimes, most of the times, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just that next step, it's that next layer, it's that next stepping point of the journey. And I think that like a big probably one of the like biggest challenges that in the moment felt like just utter destruction, and luckily quickly, I mean, when COVID hit, when the shutdowns,
Yeah.
I mean, there was probably a good, and actually luckily it was probably 24 to 48 hours of just like, shit, like, we're done, like, what, like, things are going to shut down, people can't go outside, we can't do cleanup, we can't.
I
And there
remember
was
those feelings.
there was a lot
Scary.
of that. We couldn't host cleanups for 6 months or 12, I think even a whole year. But Cam and I sat down, and it was like, okay, we can either be afraid and like kind of back down, or we can face this head on and run, like, just run into the eye of the storm. We can just address this head on. We can, with our team, with our like our community, with the opportunities that are ahead of us. And we just said, all right, let's go all in. Let's increase our ad spend, not decrease it. Let's increase our commitment to our community and the communication we had with them, and try to facilitate ways of, we can't host cleanups, but you know what? Just walk outside, and even if you don't pick up trash, you're just getting outside. So
Yeah.
we've really tried to help people through, again, when you're aligned on serving your audience and the needs that they have, the needs that our customers had in that 6-12 month period, were very different than they were before then, but we're so aligned with like how to approach them, how to think about their needs. It was like, okay, you can't get in groups, so just go out by yourself and just walk around your neighborhood and get outside and touch some grass, and trying to find ways to, like, and then sharing best practices for once things started to open up a little bit more, and to, here's some places you can go to, and here's some things you can do. And so really just trying to, and road tripping became a big thing. So it's like, okay, how do we help, educate on how to road trip effectively and do these things. And so I think it's when you're like, that's my biggest thing. And I think where I really, it's just how my brain and my heart and my mind, and it's just how I approach every business and thing that I build, or client that I meet with, is really going as deep as I can and understanding the end consumer's motivations and desires and needs. Because if you're in tune with that, I think you can pivot more quickly. You can deliver value more authentically. You can really, versus, our demographic really likes this, so let's do our version of that. It comes from a much more authentic place, even if it is a repurposing of something. It's coming from a place of, oh yeah, I understand. It's empathy, right? It's
Right.
like really understanding and empathizing with their life, their lifestyle, their motivations, their needs, and then not letting your own ego or your own vision. A lot of times, I talk to businesses that are in later, mid to late stage of the startup timeline. And a lot of it is like, this was for Cam and I, was in the 2 years before we sold, was like, how do we get out of our own way? How do we remove ourselves, not just from the decision making and that, because that's also important, but just like what things are holding us back, because it's just our own thoughts or our own ideas or our own, wisdom that we think this is the right thing, or we just don't know. Like, so I think a big piece is like sometimes just trusting your intuition, trusting what your community is responding to, trusting what, if you're putting good out there, that the things that resonate is the area you should spend more of your time on, not less. There's this idea that talked with a lot recently, which is like this idea of like digging for gold. And oftentimes you're, as a business, you're digging for gold and you find a little gold over here and you're like, oh my gosh, amazing. Let me dig over here and see if there's some more. We can get 2 things of gold, but you completely stop operations on this pot of gold because there may be more over here, versus like when you strike gold, just dig deeper and deeper until you can either, there's no more there and move, or you can build out a, research team to go find that next vein of gold, that next area to build on.
I love that analogy. And to your point, it sounds like you found some gold with Keep Nature Wild in terms of like the lessons that you learned with building the business.
100%.
And now you've transitioned that knowledge into what you're doing now with, and I hope I'm pronouncing this, it's Honey House, right? That's how you say it?
Honey House. Yep.
Honey House. Yeah. Do you mind talking about like what you guys do there and how you took this idea of, building Keep Nature Wild, gaining the experience, and now you're like, you know what? I've learned all this. Now I can go help other people build their own brands.
Yeah. So, like a big motivation for me is to leave a legacy that employs as many people as I can. And I can't do that alone. And creating an atmosphere, an environment, a space for just good business practice and facilitate good businesses growing and thriving is a big, that's my commitment, right? My high level commitment. And so Honey House is really an extension of that. Is I know that the value that I can provide a business to find that unlock, to hit that next level of growth, to help them get out of their own way, will enable them to pay themselves, to hire people, to grow, to have that impact. And so that's on the motivation side. On the execution side, what I think is unique about what we're trying to build here at Honey House is, yes, we're an agency, because that's the easiest terminology to understand. And coming from the agency world, there's great and bad connotations. There's
definitely a stigma around it.
And so it's like, but at the end of the day, we are an agency. We're a place where people can come and help facilitate the growth of their business. Where we approach it maybe a little bit differently is what I've just been describing. Is it's not like we don't have a roadmap of like, oh, we do exactly this and this only, and there's pros and cons to that, because then it's hard for people to fully understand, well, what do you do, what don't you do, versus, hey, we're a ad agency, or we're a social influencer agency, or we're a social media management company, that your agency that'll manage your socials, right? Those are very clear, digestible needs.
Yeah.
Similar, I actually had a conversation with Bo Euler of Enlisted Design, and what's his role at your company?
So he's just one of our partners.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talking with him, and like Enlisted Design is very unique in their approach, where similar to us. So we approach it from let's have a conversation. Let's really get aligned on what are you wanting to accomplish? What are your goals? What are you committed to? What are the challenges you face? So it's more of a let's get insight around what you're actually trying to accomplish. Because a lot of people will hire agencies, and why a lot of agencies don't work out is a mix of the skill set of the agency, but also of the actual motivations or needs of the brand. Like that, there's that misalignment, and they think they want this. They're hiring an agency to do this, but really, they just don't even know where they're trying to get to and what they're trying to accomplish, right? So we try to take an approach of let's get aligned on what are your objectives, what are the things that you're committed to building, where are you at in the business, and then who is your target audience, and let's look into what are their motivations, what are they inspired by, what you know, and then when we can map those two things, then it's like, okay, here's the process we can take. You could launch a podcast, we can batch content so you can speak more and have more reach to that audience. You can create creative campaigns around this type of storytelling that resonates with your audience and where you're trying to get to. We can design out a better website that speaks more clearly to these things. So so there are core deliverables that we provide, but our approach is very much let's start from the end in mind, and then try to build the stepping stones to getting there and evolve with you. So it feels more like a partnership. We're aligning on a vision, on a direction, on an end goal, and then obviously we have to deliver on that, and that's our challenge and our opportunity. But it just feels a lot more authentic to the way that I like to do business and to build, and to like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna at least attempt to do it right, and I'm gonna be as committed as possible. And so there's some challenges with that in building an agency, because at the end of the day, it's a service business, and there's bandwidth and everything, and we're not perfect at it by any means, but that's what we are trying to curate in the clients that we work with, is this flexible partnership where we can deliver results based on those end objectives and have a deep insight on what your customer actually wants. Because there's a lot of brands that will go to an agency that does video and say, here's what we blah, blah, blah. We want to do a video that does this. And like a lot of agencies will just do it because they'll be like, sure, you can pay us 15 grand and we'll crank out this video. And even knowing that video is not going to resonate for the audience, they just saw some other brand in a different category do a video like this, and they think that'll work for them. And so in my mind, in my experience, and what we're trying to build here is like the space and the comfort level to tell a client, no, that's not what you need. Here's what the data says. Here's what the research says. Here's what we need to be mapping towards. We can take inspiration from that, but if you want to just crank that video out and do that because that's what you think is going to work, like maybe we're not the right fit for you.
Good luck.
Because at the end of the day, they're going to be dissatisfied. We're going to be dissatisfied with the work because it doesn't speak to what we know to be true. And so it's, and again, there's not a perfect equation for that, because there's the variable of the creative, the consumer, the market, everything is in play. But the more we can be focused on that end consumer, on the community, on where can you provide value first, then the conversation just starts in such a different place. Like, what value are you committed to delivering to your audience? Okay, let's map towards that and build around that, and build a campaign that matches that, versus we want more sales, we want more customers, we want a larger reach. Yeah,
I love that. And it's like your storytelling through brands. That's so cool.
Totally.
Definitely. Yeah. And adding value, I think is where the long lasting part of it comes into play, is what it sounds like. Like, you need to identify that first, where you want it to go, and then figure out how to tell the story to get people excited, and then go tell their friends about it.
Exactly. And you're spot on. It's finding ways to tell stories that resonate with people. And when you can come from a place of value, like we get emotionally connected to movies, content, films, TV shows that we watch that like the most successful TV shows of the last 20 years provided value outside of the show. The Office, for example.
Yeah.
Comedy, it's funny, great show, great writing, all the things. It's entertaining. It stands on its own. That's the other thing, is it's not that your primary objective needs to be good.
Yeah.
Not that you build these, but where The Office became legendary and long lasting is it did such a good job of being so relevant in its time that every conversation you had each week was around, oh, did you see that episode of The Office? And that conversation, and then the friendships and the this and this, whatever, and so that's why a lot of garbage television, does well, because it's serving we can talk to our friends about, what's going to happen next week on The Bachelor, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's serving a purpose of, it gives me a reason to talk with my friends during the week about something that's not my kids or my work or my this or that. So, so it's even as simple as that, right? And even in the entertainment is, how does it also become, because now that's valuable to me as an end consumer, because now I have something to contribute or to talk about or to share. And so it's thinking of those ways of and the best, businesses, the best people, like, why did that window break on the Cybertruck when Elon Musk demoed the Cybertruck? If you think that was on accident, it wasn't, because the thousands, if not tens of thousands of articles and conversations and things, like, he gave value to people for the next 6 months to talk shit about it.
Yeah, basically. Seriously though.
But it was value. So he gets it. Yeah. He understands, how do I give value? This is a big pitch. Any other businesses, I need the value. I got to sell a bunch of trucks.
Right.
So all the value has to come back to me. Give me. When you can flip that and figure out, how do I give so much value to the audience, to the customers, to the consumer, that buying the product is secondary, but just of course I'm going to buy that product, because it's so, I got so much value out of, like, even people who talk the most crap about the Cybertruck maybe came back and were like, actually, that's pretty cool, and this and that, whatever, right? And so we'll see once that rolls out, like,
it's true,
the impact. But it's that understanding. Mr. Beast understands it in his
100%
viral videos. It's that, one, the entertainment, but two, the conversations around it. The like, oh my gosh, did you see?
What's it going to do next? You just gave away an island.
So it's those things of understanding, where do these, like, secondary pieces of value come into play.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think that's the perfect place to kind of call it. Like, you got to identify value before you create a brand, right? And then figure out and just execute on how you're going to provide that.
100%.
That's killer.
Value first.
First.
That's the key.
Well, Sean, I seriously appreciate you coming on, talking to my listeners, and educating me too. Like, I learned a lot in this episode. I'm gonna have to go back and listen again. But how can my listeners support you in any way?
Well, first, I really appreciate the opportunity and the time. If you're looking for more info, I'm on LinkedIn pretty actively, just Sean Huntington. Or you can follow Honey House Agency on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And we're really ramping up content there. We have a podcast, and just, really trying to document this journey as we are building this out. And so follow along there. And let's see what we can build.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, homie.
All right, everyone else, keep getting after it.